Welcome back. Today we'll be discussing about yield regulation in irregular forests. Now the yield in irregular forests can be based on growing stock, in which we have von Mentel's formula and its modifications. We may recall that these methods have been applicable to regular forests, which we have already studied. And there is also one French method which has applicability in regular forests as well as irregular forests. Now coming towards yield based on increment only, where we have an important Biolley's check method or method du control. The idea of this method was conceived by Gernard and finally developed by Henry Biolley. It's basically not a separate method, but it's a more precise and specific procedure which aims at improvement kind of forest management. Why? To bring the forest to highest state of productivity and in perpetuity. The important thing in this method is estimation of increment of the crop periodically. How? We need to know that. The principle behind the method is composition and distribution of growing stock can be molded. This is the principle behind this method. Why? To improve the timber production. Now silviculture in this system is given paramount importance, and balanced distribution of all age classes has to be envisaged in a selection forest. Just like there are different distribution of age classes which are balanced in a regular forest, the same has to be applicable under this method in selection forest. Now it had a well-conceived idea that we have to leave all the well-shaped trees, all the vigorous trees, to grow as long as they remain vigorous and contributing to the increment. He also believed that volumes of small, medium and old age classes should be approximately in the ratio of 20:30:5 or 2:3:5. This is the ratio that's got to be maintained under this method for regulation of yield. Now while doing this, Biolley recognized two sources of error. He told us that the volume to be estimated for growing stock has to be obtained from volume tables rather than to get diameter at breast height from the ground and then to estimate the volume. The second source of error that he recognized was that the increment put on by previously enumerated trees. Now you have to understand that when we enumerate anything for the growing stock, there is a minimum diameter above which we take the trees into consideration. The trees which are very small and doesn't have much contribution towards the volume are not measured for estimation of growing stock. Now in next year, when you go for enumeration, some of the trees which may not have been enumerated in the previous growing stock may now qualify, because the size might have increased, may now qualify for the estimation of growing stock. He stressed on the point that those new entrants should be kept separate. Now how he did that? We have a simple illustration in this table which has been adapted from Chaturvedi and Khanna. You see here we have size classes and we have number of trees, which is volume 1 and volume 2, means volume in the first enumeration, volume in the second enumeration, and like this. This is the age class, and jointly we call them, categorize them under large trees. Now there is another category as medium trees. There is another category as small trees. Now at every enumeration it happens that the tree which is say 50 centimeter size, in the next enumeration its size may grow and it may qualify into large tree class. So that's okay, because it has to move from one size class to another class. Now the same thing may happen here in small tree category. Now this tree may pass from small tree category to medium tree category after attaining size in the next enumeration. Now this is the movement from one bigger class to other bigger class. There may be movement or dynamics within the broader class from one size class to another. Means 65 may in the next enumeration may grow to the size of 70. Likewise here 40 may grow to the size of 45. Likewise 20 may grow to the size of 25. So you got it. I hope so. Now we have in the previous enumeration, some trees were not enumerated under small trees because of their size. They didn't qualify to be enumerated for the estimation of growing stock. Now we got some 117 trees which have recruited, which have newly been added to the growing stock. In addition, what was estimated in the previous growing stock. So this can be deemed as an increment to the previous growing stock. So Biolley stressed on the fact that this class is not to be mixed up with small trees, because it qualifies to be categorized under small trees. It should not be done so. It should be left as an increment under the category of recruitment. This gives us an idea that how much the growing stock has increased from the previous enumeration, because all the changes which took place from major groups or between the size classes, these have already been enumerated in the previous enumeration. But this is the new thing which has come in this enumeration over the previous enumeration. So we get an idea about the increment. So Biolley basically stressed on the distribution and dynamics of the size classes of the trees rather than the total volume estimation or total growing stock estimation. Now how to illustrate it more further, he told that determination of absolute volume is not important rather than determining the change in magnitude and distribution of volume. Now, how the passage of recruitment changed from one dia class to another? From one dia class to higher class within the same group. Already told you. From higher dia class of one group to the lower dia class of the higher group. We already discussed it. From the unenumerated dia class to the lowest of the enumerated class. This is the new thing which has been added. So he devised a formula accordingly. Z is equal to V2 minus V1 plus N minus P, where Z is the increment, V2 is the present growing stock, V1 is the growing stock N years ago, N is the volume of trees that have been cut, that will add as an increment, and NP is the volume of recruitment in N years from lower story to the main stand. So ultimately we get increment, which is Z equal to volume of the present growing stock minus volume of the previous growing stock, and N, which will get added of course, is the volume of the trees that have been cut. That have been cut means it was there and it's an increment, minus P. What is the P? P is the volume of recruitment in N years from lower story to the main stand. Why we have kept it separate and we are subtracting it? Because this is the new recruitment which has not to be accounted for in this increment, because it is the new increment which has added to the existing growing stock. So for getting the increment within the growing stock that was enumerated earlier, this may unnecessarily add to the things which are factually not correct in terms of what the Biolley check method says. Fellings, now there is one thing to note, that fellings are made strictly on silvicultural conditions in all age groups and not in the large group only. So for the improvement of the crop, fellings have to be done in every age class for the betterment and improvement of the crop. Thank you very much for listening to this lecture.